weight training doesn't have to be your end-all be-all for you to lose weight or for putting on muscle mass. Obviously, putting on muscle mass is a different story. You're going to need to have some resistance training. When it comes to like fat loss, you necessarily don't need to go to a commercial gym or a gym in general. It'll help for sure. Like, resistance training is a great way to burn calories. If you're not a fan of resistance training per se, then don't do it. For at least to start off. Look, you can do Zumba, do yoga, do anything that makes you enjoy fitness. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it, if you're trying to do this consistently, if you're trying to make sure that you stick with this for a long, long time, you're going to have to like it. There's two main components of weight loss. There's calories in and calories out. And I know everyone talks about this. And look, I'm coming from a place of actually doing it. I've tried this for like 3 years, and I have to unfortunately report back, this is the only way that works. It really is. This is the secret sauce. Initially, what you're going to have to do, unfortunately, is count your calories. If you're just starting out, and if you're just trying to get into it, you don't need a piece of paper to do this on. Use your phone. Use your Notes app. The other thing is I'm not gonna say that you don't need to be, like very, very meticulous about this, because the more meticulous you are, the better your results. What I at least want you to do is to be mindful of what you're consuming. If you are a person that likes to drink coffee and you're trying to lose weight, I want you to find out, at the very least, how many calories are in your coffee. And I want you just to have an idea of how many calories you're having on a daily basis. Drinks and liquids are the best place to start, because unfortunately, I think a lot of people, especially in today's society, we drink our calories. And that comes from coffee and also pop. Pop's a huge one. Unless you're drinking, I'm not going to condone the usage of diet and zero soda, but I drink it myself because it's delicious. And because it's 0 calories and 0 sugar. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a good option other than having just fucking water. It's not. You should just have water. But I like my fizzy pop thing is just being mindful of your calories. And like I said, initially, if you don't want to actually like do the laborious work and actually count it, that's okay. It really is. At the end of the day, this is a lifelong journey, right? This isn't an overnight thing. And I, unfortunately, brute forced myself into this. So yes, your calories in, very important. Your calories out, also very important. Now, you don't necessarily need to track. Like, I'm not gonna be an advertiser here for like an Apple Watch or Fitbit or whatever the fuck else. You don't necessarily need to track any of these metrics. It is nice, I will say, to be able to track these metrics and have an idea, of, how many calories you're burning on X workout, how many steps a day you're getting, how much time you're spending on your workouts. It is nice to have these metrics. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you straight up. It is nice to have them. But you don't necessarily need them. Especially if you're at the very least consistent with your working out, that's enough, in my opinion. I'm not going to tell you it's the right or wrong way to do this. You got to have some type of calories out either way. Like, you have to have some type of activity you're doing to burn these calories. And look, it could just be walking. I'll give you a bit of history, a backstory on my journey so far. In like 2023, I went through some pretty big changes. And I had a lot of like pent up energy that needed to go somewhere. So I started walking. For me, I've been working out for a long time. I'm gonna turn this light back off now. Oh, I've been working out for a long time. I've been on and off with the gym since like 2011, 2010, and for me, it's been the hardest part for me has been the consistency, because I was able to like go for like 6 months straight, hardcore, crazy style on it. But I couldn't go, that was as far as I could make it. was that 6 months, and then I'd fall off. And for me, I now know why that was. It was the purpose of me working out. It wasn't a good base foundation to like actually get in the habit of weight training and working out consistently. In 2023, when I went through all these changes, and I had all this shit kind of like I wasn't mentally like dealing with, I took it upon myself to start doing fitness again. But I didn't want to go to the gym because I didn't really have that like time or motivation to do it. So I started walking. And I'm going to be honest, I was walking a lot. I was doing like I was doing like 10 kilometers a day at first. And then I got to a point where I was walking like 20K a day. And I did that for a few months, and then winter hit and I had to stop. So then that's when I started going to the gym. And it's been 3 years. And I haven't stopped. I've had days and weeks where like I kind of fall off, and that is what it is. But I'm at the gym now, and today we're doing back, upper body essentially. So I'm gonna be doing some fucking rows, some bench press, some pull downs, some flies, all the good stuff. For this portion, though, I just wanted to talk about, when you're trying to get into this activity or, doing something different or going to the gym or whatever the case may be proud of the fact if you get out of bed and you go to that thing and you show up at the facility, regardless of how hard you worked, regardless if you feel like you could have went harder or you could have, put more effort in, you showing up is so crucial. And, you got to give yourself a pat on the back, because I think showing up is the hardest part. Once you get to where you're trying to be at, the gym, the yoga studio, the Zumba studio, whatever you're trying to do, I don't know why I always default to those ones, but whatever. You're going to do the exercise when you're there. Your exertion of energy and how hard you go, that's obviously going to change, based off your energy levels, but being there and being consistent with showing up for yourself in that capacity, that is crucial. It's so important. So give yourself a pat on the back. Today's workout could have been a lot better, for sure. But you know what? I woke up at 4 a.m. and I did the damn thing, okay? Today was my first day doing this early morning workout split. My wiper is fucked. The workout portion would have happened as long as I showed up. And look, ultimately, there's going to be times where with whatever fitness activity you're doing and you want to do, whether it's weight training, yoga, Zumba, whatever the case may be, there's going to be times where you're going to have days and you're going to be like, oh, I'm tired. I don't want to get out of bed. Man, no, I had a long day at work. I'm exhausted. And all of those are very valid. Okay, I'm going to tell you that first and foremost. They're very valid. You can be tired, right? Life happens. Days can be long, and I get that. There's going to need to come a time where the excuses don't override the new habit you're trying to form. You have to look at this from the perspective of that you're building a new habit, because you will yield incredible results if you start to do this. If you start to hold yourself accountable for your excuses of why you're not working out. Because look, the excuse portion is valid. Most times, being tired is valid enough to not have to fucking do extracurricular shit. Sure. But from the perspective of habit creation, it is doing you absolutely zero favors to have that excuse. It's not helping you at all. It's actually making it harder for you to keep the habit. Because instead of trying to create the new habit, you continue the old one of making the excuse. That is your habit. And I'm not trying to put you down. I'm not trying to say, this is who you are. You can change. You could definitely have a new habit. But right now, if your default is to make the excuse of you're too tired or or this or that and the other, look, that is your habit. And I need you to at least take ownership of that. You don't have to change right away. And it might suck to hear these words and it might hurt. But once you can take ownership of that, I promise you, there is so much more on the other side of this. You will be able to make changes you will never have even thought of in your life. And I'm speaking from experience. I never really took accountability for my excuses until I kind of got brute forced into it. And I never had room for excuses because I knew the necessity of me doing those walks when I was first starting out a few years ago. And that just transitioned into a good base and a building block for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And now I'm here. I'm not in the physical condition that I want to be in by any means, but I am definitely miles and miles ahead of where I was 3 years ago. And I may not hit my goal this year. I may not hit my goal next year. I don't care. Because the difference now is my purpose for doing this isn't just for the look aspect and the aesthetics. It's the health purposes of this. You know, as you age, I'm 32. I just 32 last week. As we age, we lose bone density, right? And keeping your health in check with your nutrition and also with your working out, it's really important for your joints too. One thing that I haven't mentioned is I actually have arthritis in both of my knees. I have osteoarthritis, which is just an inflammation of the joints. And it's something I've had to work with working out. You know, I've had to limit certain movements. I've had to, really pay attention to my body when I'm working out because I get into a lot of pain sometimes. And that's something I've had to be mindful of. And look, I've had other, health issues prior. A big reason why I was even wanting to start, working out and just getting active again was because I was having some liver issues. I had a fatty liver. And that was just from poor diet and living like a sedentary lifestyle. And I'm at a point now where all my levels kind of leveled off. You can be in the same position I'm in, where you do that for yourself. But there needs to be a level of respect for yourself, unfortunately, as well. Not unfortunately, but, you have to, at the very least, be able to show yourself a level of respect. If you want to see changes in ways that you've never seen before or you haven't been able to achieve yet. The habit-forming portion of whatever fitness activity you choose. The habit-forming portion is going to be crucial as you're starting out whatever journey you're about to be on. And look, ultimately, the only way to form a habit is to show up and do it. Like my good buddy Tony Horton used to say from P90X, do your best and forget the rest. And how I look at that these days is, even on the days that you don't want to show up for yourself and get that workout in, or do whatever you're supposed to do for whatever goal you're trying to achieve, do something different that's easier, but still show up for yourself in that way. So for example, if there's a day where you're supposed to do a yoga class and you're like, I'm beat, I'm exhausted, had a long day at work, this fuckhead at work was yelling at me and I don't really feel it going. That's okay. What I will say, as you progress further and further in your journey, try to do something else in the same category that's a bit easier. So I'll be like, I'm not gonna do yoga because I'm feeling really shitty, but let me go for a walk. And I'll tell you this, a walk can be very therapeutic on those days where you're just like, fuck this, and fuck this guy, that customer was a bitch, he smelled like shit, he treated me like garbage, he's a fucking asshole, my manager's an asshole too, he didn't have my back, whatever the case may be. Sorry, I got an eyelash in my eye and it's starting to really, really piss me off. But these are just ways to start replacing habits. Because essentially what you have to try to look at this as you're replacing whatever bad habits you have. I won't call them bad habits. I'll call them less than ideal habits for the life that you want. Don't be a stranger. But look, show up for yourself like you show up for friends, like you show up for family, because you're just as important as, I know you saw me look at the camera there. You're just as important as those people in your life. And I need you to treat yourself as such, because unfortunately, there's no one else that's going to be able to love yourself in the way that you can love yourself. So, have a good day. I'll see you next time.